Find me on Facebook under Ethical Preparedness page. Just use the terms Ethical Preparedness page in Facebook search box. If you don't have integrity, you have nothing. You can't buy it. You can have all the money in the world, but if you are not a moral and an ethical person, then you really have nothing. Author Henry Kravis. As a police officer, I've taken many police reports from people who have had their cars broken into. And in this video, I'm going to give you some tips that will help protect you from being a victim of this crime. And we'll jump right into that right after the channel intro. Remember, you are ultimately responsible for protecting yourself and for providing for yourself. Live your life with honor and integrity, and always be the wolf hunter. Don't be the sheep, and never be the wolf. Folks, if there's one little rule I want you to remember throughout this video and the rest of your life is that many crimes against property can be prevented by remembering risk versus reward. The smaller the risk that the criminal thinks that he has to take in order to receive a great reward, then the more likely he is to commit the theft against you and or your property. But when the criminal has to take a higher risk in order to receive a lesser reward or possibly no reward at all, then the more likely he will be just to pass you and your property on by and go to somebody else who hasn't taken the same precautions as you. So just keep this rule in mind when you're trying to keep your home or your vehicles from being broken into. And if you want to see some basic tips to keep your home from being broken into and burglarized, then check out my video titled Common Mistakes That People Make That Allows Their Homes to Be Burglarized. And I'll put a link to the video down in the description box below. But back to the original topic of this video, which is how to prevent your car from being broken into. One of the first things that we have to remember is that when we, good people like you and me, when we see a parking lot or a housing addition, we just see a bunch of parked cars. But we need to remember that criminals see those as smorgasbords. So just know that even if you live away from the inner city crime, that criminals regularly leave their neighborhoods and go where people think that they're safe. They'll go to shopping malls located outside of the bad areas, and they'll also hit housing additions because many people think that they're safe in these areas, and these people will fail to take steps to protect their property. But obviously, just as much as bad guys will hit the nicer neighborhoods outside of their bad neighborhood, they'll also steal everything inside their own neighborhoods too. And in my career, for every car break-in that's been done by a criminal that leaves his bad neighborhood to hit a good neighborhood, I've seen just as many car break-ins done by teenagers who live in that same neighborhood. Teenagers whose parents don't do enough to raise them up right or keep tabs on them. Now, the number one rule for keeping your car from getting broken into is not letting people know what valuables that you have inside your car. You'd be surprised just how many people will leave expensive laptop computers and other electronics in plain view on their car seats while they go inside a restaurant to eat lunch or whatever. They'll honestly think that because they lock their car doors that their expensive electronics are protected inside of that car. And then they're shocked when they come back out to their car to find their window busted and their laptop missing. Now, to take this a step further, you don't want to leave anything in plain view in your car that could even look like it could be valuable or even contain a valuable. Purses, backpacks, briefcases, GPS units, any type of electronic that's not already factory built into your car, shopping bags, etc. I've even seen where people have put valuables in a lunch cooler and even have had them stolen because thieves know that people will hide valuables in different types of containers. Secondly, just simply lock your car. Just simply make sure that your car is locked before you walk away from it. Now, I've heard a lot of people say that they intentionally leave their car unlocked because it's easier to just let the thief open the car instead of breaking the window. But we'll touch back on that in just a minute. But when I first got into law enforcement, it honestly surprised me how many people leave valuables in unlocked cars. I'm talking expensive rings, wallets, money, guns, checkbooks, etc. The criminals have learned that if they find an unlocked car, that there's a decent chance that the person has left some kind of valuable in that car. And this is a good example of a very low risk of getting caught because they don't have to make any noise getting into that car. And a very high chance of a reward because so many people leave valuables in their cars. And just a side note, even spare change is considered a valuable to a drug-addicted tweaker. So, for the people who leave their cars unlocked because they want to save from having to replace their car window from where the thieves had broken it, if you actually leave your car locked and ensure that nothing of value can be seen inside of your car, more than likely the criminal will just pass right on by your car and move to the next target. So here's what I've learned from my 15 or 16 years now in my field. Criminals will routinely hit areas where there are a lot of cars parked at, such as store parking lots and housing additions. Then they'll approach all these cars and look into them to see if valuables are in plain sight or not. Then they'll check the car doors, and if the car is unlocked, then they'll go ahead and make entry, even if they don't see anything, and go ahead and rifle through the car searching for valuables. And if the car is locked, and if they don't see any valuables, then they'll more than likely just leave that car be and just move on to the next possible score. But if the car is locked and something of possible value is able to be seen, then they'll go ahead and break the car window to try to get to that object of possible value. Now the last example, a locked car with a valuable in plain view inside that locked car, is another example of risk versus reward. When a criminal has to smash a car window to make entry, then he creates noise, which could create possible unwanted witnesses. But when he sees a laptop computer sitting just on the other side of that car window, he knows that by taking that risk that he has an almost for certain reward. So he's going to be more willing to take that risk in order to gain that reward. Now there are other little tips and tricks that you can do to help keep your car from being broken into, like parking at the end of a row of cars, or parking where there's a lot of foot traffic which could create unwanted witnesses, or getting that safety glass to make your car windows more shatterproof. But these two main tips, locking your car and leaving nothing of value inside your car where it can be seen from the outside of it, will the majority of the time cause the thief to believe that your car has too much risk for too little of a reward, and cause him to bypass your car in order to find somebody else who will give him more reward for less risk. Obviously, these tips aren't going to 100% protect your car. There's always those unusual exceptions, and trying to predict the behaviors of tweakers and thieves is next to impossible. But I will say this, in my 15 years of police work, I have never taken a police report from somebody who had their car broken into where a stranger who had no idea of what their car contained had actually broken into a locked car where no valuables were in plain view. Every larceny from a vehicle report that I've ever taken has always been where somebody either left their vehicle unlocked or left something that either was valuable or looked like it could be valuable in the open inside of their car. So folks, I hope you found this video helpful. And if you did, please give this video the thumbs up and share it on social media for others who may find it helpful also. And I also want to hear from you, so comment below with your experiences with car break-ins and with what you've learned or what you've seen. And if you haven't already done so, please consider subscribing to this channel, as I plan on making many more videos down the road. Anyways folks, if you made it this far, thank you very much for watching, and I pray that you have a good night.